Hi, Sai and Sai here from User Radar. Today we are joined by a very old friend in Maschine Plus there.
Yeah.
Because we're having a look at an update.
To Maschine. So we're not talking about this.
Nope.
This is Maschine Plus. This came out a few years ago. What we're not talking about is any Maschine hardware. We're talking about Maschine software. So Maschine, or we were saying this, whenever you speak to anyone from actual native instruments or German, it's Maschine, isn't it?
It is.
It's German.
Maschine.
We're not going to say Maschine because...
We don't.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
we're pig-headed English people. So Maschine, basically, it is a combined hardware-software setup.
Mm-hmm.
So it launched, the original Maschine launched in 2010, I think, or around that time.
A while ago, yeah.
Around that time. And was effectively a MIDI controller designed vaguely around the format of a classic MPC. Mm-hmm. But it was a controller and a piece of software, and they were designed to work really tightly together so that you could control every aspect of the software from the hardware controller. And Maschine has developed in that way over the last decade and a bit. With various new hardware devices coming out and various updates to the software. What we are talking about today is the software side of things, everything that's going on in here. But what we have now is Maschine 3.0. So that's the third iteration of the actual software that these controllers are designed to work with.
And when was the last update?
11 years ago. Well, actually, no.
Okay.
That's a lie.
Okay.
The last update wasn't 11 years ago. The last full update was 11 years ago. So Maschine 2 arrived in 2013 alongside Maschine Studio, and that launched.
Yeah.
But there have been a lot of updates since then. So actually, before this, the most recent update to the most recent version of Maschine 2, I think, was Maschine version 2.18, I think. So there's been a lot of updates in that time.
Yeah.
And actually, over those 11 years, the Maschine 2 has kind of transformed almost unrecognisably. Like when it first launched, it added these things like drum synths and a kind of mixer and a kind of new audio engine. But over the years, it's kind of expanded massively with new arrangement tools, a bass synth, a poly synth, plug-in capabilities, new ways to sequence, things like that. A new auto sampler, I think, was one of the most recent things.
Right.
So you've had loads and loads and loads of kind of really interesting updates. It's really matured and evolved over the years, but then has kind of been a bit dormant for the last couple of years.
So judging by the amount of stuff that they've done and updating, we'd expect a big jump for this point update.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, given that people have been waiting for like a proper new version Maschine for 11 years, you would understand why kind of the community expectation around Maschine 3 is high.
Very high, yeah.
And without spoiling this, we're not blown away.
No.
Let's talk about the good things about Maschine 3.0 first. So Maschine 3.0 adds a few new updates and features, the most notable of which is stem separation.
Yes.
So stem separation is very fashionable in music software at the moment. We've seen it throughout the DJ software world in recent years. So, Serato, Native Instruments' own Tractor has recently got it.
Yeah.
Pioneer Record Box, all the big DJ applications. Yeah. It's also available in Serato Sample, which is kind of Serato's plug-in production software. FL Studio, formerly known as Fruity Loops, that now has
MPC.
MPC, Ako's MPCs, which are kind of the most direct competitor to Maschine. They've added stem separation over recent years, so it's obviously not a surprise to see that it's coming to Maschine, because you've seen a lot of these direct rivals. So what stem separation does, as you would expect, is it allows you to import a fully mixed track or a bit of audio, and it will separate this down into its kind of core stem elements. The way these stems are structured, we've now got a kind of almost industry standard way of doing that, which normally means that you get 4 different stems, which will be by usually drums, bass, vocals, and other, and then other is normally kind of, you know, where all those other
melodic content,
kind of melodic things, synths, strings, brass section, guitars, etc. sit into that. And so that's what we've got within Maschine as well. So I'm gonna pull up a track now in here. So I've dragged a track that we just grabbed from one of our royalty-free track sources here, which we're going to then separate the stems on so you can just see how this works. When we were testing this, I've compared this with quite a few different tracks in different genres. I'm just going to use a fairly simple version now just so we can show it quickly. Sure. I've got this loaded, as you can see here, just as an audio track. Let's just jump in here and we can hear a little bit of this. Cool. So you can hear kind of classic sort of R&B pop arrangement. Now, if we go down to this edit view here, this is Machine's kind of sample audio edit view here. And now, and we go into this edit tab here. And now this is where we would edit a sample normally. And all of these options here are pretty standard things that were in the previous version of Maschine. So you can do things like truncate, fades, reversing, copy, paste, normalizing, etc., etc.
And stuck at the end.
Stuck at the end, we have this stems function here. Now I'm going to press that and you will see we get this little percentage here. Now we can use the rest of Machine's UI here and kind of do anything else we want in Maschine while that's working, but we can only do one track at a time. And so we have to wait for that to process. We will cut in a second using the magic of editing, because I'm not going to make you wait the entire thing. But in terms of timing, so this is my 2020 MacBook Pro, which has got the kind of M1 chip in it. And using this, I found when I was testing it, so a 4-minute pop song was taking around 2.5 minutes. Then you kind of go up to like an 8-minute electronic track. Understandably, it's kind of double to like what, like kind of 5 minutes-ish. So that's the sort of amount of time that you're looking at. So when that reaches 100%, this is what we get. We get a completely new group here. So let's mute that first group. And the second group here, you can see across the first 4 sound slots in this group, we've got the drums, bass, other, and vocals of these. Now these are, if I click on one, you can see they load basically as samplers. So you get the kind of sample editing options here. Just to demo them a bit easier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn these to audio tracks, and then let's just drop in here, and I've just extended the length of this so we can just hear these. So there we can hear all of them together. And we've got our drums here, our vocals. We skip ahead. Here's some bass. And then our other. So we're kind of getting all those synthy sounds in that. So you can hear the separation is pretty good. It's not quite perfect. You're getting a few artifacts in here. This is the first time we tried this specific track, to be fair. As I said, it's the technology comes from
Tractor.
No, it comes from iZotope RX.
Oh, sorry, yes, because the stablemates.
Yeah, so iZotope was bought by the company that own Native Instruments a few years ago, so they're now kind of effectively stablemates. So this is one area where you find that there's a bit of cross-pollination in what's going on. So that is the big headline feature here.
Stems is a win, generally.
It works nicely, the results are good. What I will say about stems is it feels a little bit tacked on to Maschine. As we saw when we were demoing it originally, it kind of just sits at the end of those kind of audio editing tools. And what I really would have liked is to have seen Machine's audio editing sort of redesigned to put stems at the center of it, rather than it just feeling like it's something that's added on the end, and then kind of maybe being given some specific tools that make it a bit easier to like slice a vocal from a chorus or manipulate bits of bits of a track to fit around something that you're working on and things, almost like you kind of get with Ableton Live with its warp things. Something like that would make it a little bit easier to work with.
Yeah, yeah.
So the other thing that Native Instruments have launched with Maschine 3 is something called Maschine Central, and that's basically a complete rebuild of the factory library that you get with Maschine.
Yeah.
So the factory library being a selection of like samples, kits, synth presets and things, basically the sounds that power Maschine.
Yeah.
So with Maschine Central, clocks in about 8 gigabytes, and it replaces the existing Maschine library. That doesn't mean that if you're a current Maschine owner and you update, you don't lose any of your own sounds.
But you get the extras, presumably?
Well, there are options for whether you want them or not.
Okay.
So you can either buy the software, you can either upgrade the software on its own, or you can buy a bundle with the new samples and content and some additional software that comes with it as well, which includes Ozone Elements, which is another thing that's come over from iZotope.
Yep.
So generally speaking, this Maschine Central, you get, like I said, kind of one-shot samples, multi-sample instruments that are kind of powered by contacts, presets for like Monarch, Prism, Massive, the original Massive, not Massive X, that is. And then kind of new kits and things. And there's been an obvious effort to like modernize the sound set a bit. So you've got things, kind of sounds from like drill and modern pop things alongside kind of classic hip hop, bits of drum bass. But it's kind of quite contemporary sounding. And actually I've always been really impressed by the quality of sounds like that come with Maschine and like their expansions and things like that. Native Instruments are very good at making high quality sounds and very usable kits. And Maschine Central, I would say, I've not managed to explore the entirety of this library in time for the review, but like the general quality is pretty high and it all seems very usable. So for a new user, I think there's a good broad spectrum of stuff and a lot to get your teeth into. What I will say is it definitely doesn't feel definitive in any way. Like, you know, it's not that extensive when it comes to genre kits and stuff. You've got bits of things, but not other things covered. It definitely leaves holes that I would assume Native Instruments are hoping people will fill by buying the expansion packs. And what I'd probably say is actually, if you already own a Maschine sample, like a Maschine factory library, and possibly, you know, some of your own samples or kind of expansion packs from Maschine, I don't think it's an essential purchase. If anything, actually, if you're a long-time Maschine user, you've probably already, you know, got your own style, got your own sounds. If you're going to spend more money on samples, I'd say one of the much more targeted expansion packs is probably better value than grabbing this.
So it feels more like it's a point update, but the time elapsed since the last update, they kind of felt like they've needed to make it a big thing.
There are a couple of other things worth mentioning. Of the new features, I think the most interesting thing for me is the fact that with these scenes here, you can now set a tempo for each individual scene, which is a really nice touch and will be very handy for like live performers and things because it means you can effectively like trigger new scenes and then completely change tempo. So you can have a whole live setup within one project. You also get some new MIDI editing tools. And when I kind of saw that they were saying, oh, new MIDI editing tools, I kind of think, oh, this is going to be quite interesting. It's not really. I'll be honest, like the new MIDI editing tools, you basically get this selection here. You can kind of select, draw, split notes like this. You can join them or you can kind of mute them. You can also...
That's pretty standard.
It lets you audition or individual notes, but it's, you know, it's pretty standard stuff basically. So one thing is worth noting with Maschine is that originally the Maschine software was only available with bundled hardware. And in more recent times, Native Instruments is now selling the Maschine software on its own. So I'd say these MIDI tools feel like they're basically geared up to make the software more usable for someone who isn't making use of a hardware controller or kind of for more nuanced editing alongside a hardware controller. There are other little things. So Maschine also supports kind of limited, not complete compatibility with Native Instruments' most recent keyboard controllers, which are the SL Series Mark III. And then you also do get new file format compatibility as well. So you can now load MP3s, M4As, FLACs, a few other things. So kind of compressed formats and things, which makes a big difference, particularly with the stem separation, because obviously dragging an MP3 in is very useful if you're going to have that. But that is kind of it. And honestly, it feels, as you said before, it's been, 11 years since the last major full update.
Which was a huge overhaul at the time.
Which was a huge overhaul.
Yeah.
And having this just feels quite an underwhelming way to step into what is supposedly like a new generation of Machine. And it's fair to saying, I still really enjoy using Machine. I think the fundamentals of Machine, like the kind of fun, fast workflow, that MPC style sequencing and things, is still really fun. And this doesn't break that, but it really feels like it's missing a massive opportunity to add something new.
Yeah. I see.
As we said, those MIDI tools, I kind of think like when you see the press release for Machine 3 and those are like the second or third thing, like, come on, like MIDI tools, like look at Bitwig Studio, look at Ableton Live, look at these kind of bits of software where you've got the kind of cool generative tools. Where are your generative tools? Where's your probability sequencing? Where's the Euclidean sequencer? Where's the MPE capabilities? I know these aren't MPE controllers, but that doesn't mean you can't have
something else plugged into it.
Working with that, or kind of like, all of these, compared to what else is happening in the software world, that is just so far behind.
Yeah.
And like it's worth saying, as I've said, the stem separation works well and it's nice, but that is the headline feature of Machine 3, and it is borrowed from another bit of software. Like it comes from RX, like iZotope RX, so it's not original in that. It's already the same sort of kind of same functionality effectively is already in Tractor, and again it's playing catch up, isn't it? Because it's like, as you said, it's already in Akai's MPCs, which are the direct rival here. It's already in FL Studio, it's already in Serato Sample. So like when your headline feature is just playing catch up with your rivals, it just feels very disappointing for like what is meant to be a whole new refreshed version. And like if you load up this new version of Machine, you will see like the UI looks different. It's slightly modernized, nice. But then I think for any experienced user, as you explore more and realize how little has changed, I think people are really kind of going to be lined up for a bit of disappointment on that front. So it is worth saying, like price-wise, the upgrade price is not expensive. So you can upgrade from Machine 2 to Machine 3 for $29, I think.
Okay,
so
that softens the blow a bit.
And look, if you're interested in stem separation, that's not unreasonable to ask. But what I will say is that it's, as you say, that kind of feels like point update stuff. And if you're not interested in the stem separation things, then there's not masses. Like that 29 doesn't include the Machine Central, which is an extra purchase.
An extra, right.
So, and it's also, it's not necessarily a optional update. So from what I can tell from them replying on forums and things, is that Native Instruments aren't planning on continuing support for the previous version of Machine, so Machine 2, which means that effectively, if you're bought into the ecosystem and you own hardware or you've built a thing, you realistically need to buy the update.
Yeah.
And so
that would stick in the craw.
Price aside, it just
many users, I'd imagine.
The whole thing feels to me like someone at Native Instruments has decided that we need to get Machine 3 out the door, and has asked around, like, what can we get into this? Because it doesn't feel like there has been a roadmap of like, what can we do to rebuild this? There are definitely things that I would love to see changed and improved in Machine. So for one thing, as I said, Machine Central, you've got all these presets for like Monarch, Massive and Prism, and all of those synths are 10 years old at least. Like they were talking the original version of Massive, and they're not bad synths and the sounds are good, but also it just demonstrates how much you're crying out for like, something new and interesting, maybe something using granular stuff or something West Coast inspired or things like, compared to the devices we're seeing again in places like Ableton Live or Reason or things, which if you're looking at Machine as a standalone thing that you would use without hardware, these are the people that they're going up against. And it's like, it just feels like a missed opportunity to add something or some new creative ideas. So we're not that impressed.
Not enamoured by it.
As I said, I still like Maschine.
Yeah.
I still think it's fun. Although I haven't used it much in the last few years, I've gone through fits and starts of using it quite extensively, and it's, whenever I come back to it, you just enjoy the workflow. But I think if you're a user who has invested in Maschine through buying hardware or through buying expansion packs and things like that, you probably feel you deserve more innovation than this, and you're just not getting it from here.
Well, we'd like to know what you think, Maschine users. Get in the comments section. Tell us what you think about this. I'm probably guessing the sort of vibe. And in non-Maschine users, is it kind of enticing you to it? These stems, is that enough for you to buy it? We don't know. That's for you to fight it out. We'll see you again soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that business. Until then, we'll see you next time.